If a man is this handsome and charming, then how do you think he would make his money? This newly released 2026 Korean film will not only completely overturn your impression of a handsome man, but with a story that runs only 86 minutes. It will also make you feel suffocating fear every single second, because inside one tiny room, the director presents the hatred between family members, the inborn struggle of human nature, and its ugliness in an extremely oppressive way. And the story begins with an intense opening. That day, the female lead So-Jin was walking home when two people suddenly came up from behind and knocked her unconscious. After handcuffing So-Jin inside a van, the female kidnapper Hae-Ran went to a supermarket to buy all kinds of things they would need. To make sure this kidnapping would go perfectly, the highly cautious male kidnapper Tae-soo did not hesitate for a second, threw away Hae-Ran's phone, and took So-Jin to a remote house. The two of them immediately began preparing the place, covering every wall with soundproof padding, and putting several locks on every possible exit. Clearly, they would not stop until they got what they wanted. After everything was ready, Hae-Ran pulled off So-Jin's hood and forced her to face the computer screen. When So-Jin learned that the two kidnappers wanted a ransom of 1 billion won, she still shook her head and said she simply did not have it. Even though her father was a powerful tycoon, she admitted that ever since divorcing her ex-husband and leaving the family, she had not contacted her father again. Seeing that So-Jin did not seem willing to cooperate, Tae-soo had no choice but to use another method, taking kidnapping photos of So-Jin to use for extortion. When Hae-Ran tried to put a gag in her mouth, So-Jin fought back fiercely and bit her. Realizing that So-Jin was not someone easy to control, Tae-soo stopped pretending to be gentle, stepped forward and knocked So-Jin unconscious with one punch, then took several more photos of her tied up and anonymously sent them to So-Jin's tycoon father. Although Tae-soo was confident he could get the ransom, Hae-Ran did not feel certain at all. She could not help but believe what So-Jin had said. Maybe So-Jin's father really would not come to save his daughter. Seeing that Hae-Ran seemed to be losing her nerve, Tae-soo immediately stuffed a hamburger into her mouth to shut her up, then warned her that the two of them had no way back now, so she had better not think about giving up. Tae-soo's forceful and unwavering attitude left Hae-Ran with no choice but to obey. The next day, because he had to go out for a while, Tae-soo told Hae-Ran to keep a close watch on So-Jin. As he spoke, he handed her a pistol and told her that if So-Jin resisted again, she could shoot her at any time. Fortunately, Hae-Ran, as a woman herself, had never truly wanted to hurt So-Jin. Seeing So-Jin lying motionless on the bed, Hae-Ran could not help stepping forward to check on her, but before she could even touch her toes to test her, So-Jin suddenly spoke and said she was about to pee. Hae-Ran immediately ran to the bathroom, brought back a bucket, placed it beside the bed, then untied the ropes around So-Jin and unlocked one of the handcuffs attached to the bed frame, signaling that if she needed to relieve herself, she had to do it right there. With the kidnapper pointing a gun at her, So-Jin had no choice but to accept it, no matter how unwilling she was. However, she had not given up on resisting. The moment the kidnapper turned her back and let down her guard, So-Jin suddenly launched an attack right after finishing. The instant So-Jin grabbed the gun first, the balance of power between them reversed in a flash. So-Jin demanded that Hae-Ran throw her the handcuff key, otherwise she would definitely pull the trigger. But Hae-Ran urged her not to struggle. She reminded her that this place was in the middle of nowhere, and every door and window had already been locked by her accomplice. If she wanted to stay alive, she needed to give the gun back immediately. Desperate to escape, So-Jin naturally refused to believe her. When she saw Hae-Ran still trying to snatch the gun, So-Jin pulled the trigger without hesitation. Although the bullet luckily hit the wall, Hae-Ran still urged So-Jin to give up resisting. Once her accomplice finds out that she has been exposed, she definitely will not live to see tomorrow. But So-Jin remained unmoved after hearing that, and even started counting down from 3 as a threat. Seeing that no matter what she said, she could not persuade her, Hae-Ran had no choice but to reveal who she really was.
나도 그 사람 딸이야.
뭐라고?
버렸다고 자식이 아닌 건 아니잖아. 모르는 척하면 안 되는 거잖아. 그니까 나 그 사람 돈 받을 자격 있는 거 아니야?
It turned out that Hae-Ran was her half-sister from the same father. The reason she had joined forces to kidnap So-Jin was simply because she wanted to save her seriously ill younger brother. But even though Hae-Ran revealed her reason and goal, and said that this kidnapping was never meant out of malice, So-Jin, who had cut ties with her father for many years, did not care at all about Hae-Ran's situation. Just as the atmosphere became completely tense, the pager went off, which clearly meant the other person was about to return. To keep the two of them from losing their lives, Hae-Ran could only take the risk and forcefully stop her. Just like that, So-Jin was handcuffed to the bed again. After restoring the scene as much as possible, Hae-Ran immediately went to wash out the bucket, then opened the door. Although Hae-Ran tried her best to hide her panic, Tae-soo still sensed that something was off, and questioned what exactly she had done. Knowing that Tae-soo was that sensitive, Hae-Ran could only lie and say that So-Jin needed to use the bathroom, and that she had just been cleaning the toilet. When Tae-soo found nothing unusual in the bathroom, he had no choice but to let it go and stop pressing her. Although Hae-Ran narrowly got through that moment, Tae-soo still did not let her relax. Because there was still no reply from So-Jin's father, Tae-soo began to think about selling organs.
전기라도 떼다가 팔아야지. 그냥 풀어줄 순 없잖아.
그런 말 없었잖아요.
수술비만 받을 수 있으면 뭐든 하겠다면서. 아니야?
Hearing that cold-blooded and twisted plan, Hae-Ran could not help worrying about So-Jin, because judging from Tae-soo's hardline attitude, he was clearly capable of doing something truly extreme. However, before that moment could even arrive, something even more frightening happened first. Because he still held onto a sliver of hope, and did not want So-Jin starving to become a reason for the tycoon to refuse payment, Tae-soo fed her porridge the next day, which instantly left So-Jin stunned. Just as Hae-Ran was also surprised by this, the two of them noticed a shell casing on the floor. To stop Tae-soo from discovering that unusual detail, Hae-Ran slowly moved closer, intending to pick it up, but unexpectedly Tae-soo suddenly turned around.
물 좀 주세요.
Taking advantage of the moment Tae-soo was distracted, Hae-Ran immediately swallowed the bullet casing. With So-Jin's cooperation and cover, the sudden danger was successfully defused, but Tae-soo still felt irritated. He could not understand why Hae-Ran cared about So-Jin, and his suspicious nature made him start wondering whether the two sisters were secretly planning something. Faced with Tae-soo's suspicion, Hae-Ran quickly came up with an explanation and said, "Wasn't it only by taking good care of So-Jin that they could possibly get such a huge ransom?" That answer left Tae-soo speechless, and for the moment, he could only awkwardly head out again. At last, with a brief chance to breathe, Hae-Ran removed So-Jin's hood again, so this older sister could relax a little too. But at this point, So-Jin could not calm down at all, because she had such deep conflict with her father. She knew clearly that he would never come to save her. Since Hae-Ran only wanted to save her younger brother, So-Jin said she had 80 million won in her account. As long as Hae-Ran chose to let her go, she would transfer it to the designated account immediately, and then the two of them could figure out a way to escape together. So-Jin promised that she would absolutely not call the police, and reminded her that saving her brother was what mattered most right now. Although Hae-Ran truly wanted to agree to So-Jin's plan, she could not make a decision right away. First, she believed that two vulnerable women would probably not be able to escape Tae-soo's control. Second, the 80 million won for treatment would not completely cure her brother's illness. At most, it could only buy the doctors a little more time. What Hae-Ran did not know, however, was that in a situation this tense and dangerous, wasting even 1 second meant 1 more second of risk. Because the huge ransom still had not arrived, Tae-soo brought out a camera stand that night and planned to record So-Jin being tormented, using it to force So-Jin's father to hand over the money. So-Jin, who had already lost all hope, naturally refused to submit. Seeing that she was still stubbornly resisting and unwilling to say anything pleading on camera, the hot-tempered Tae-soo lost his patience and directly tried to cut off one of So-Jin's fingers. Fortunately, at the very last second, Hae-Ran rushed up from behind and stopped Tae-Soo in time. She signaled for him to look at the bed. Noticing that So-Jin had already wet herself from fear, Tae-Soo saw that his goal had been achieved and could only give up. Although she had once again helped So-Jin out of danger, Hae-Ran could not help mocking Tae-Soo's behavior when she saw the smug look on his face. Tae-Soo, who thought highly of himself, could not accept the blow to his pride at all, and immediately got up and brutally beat Hae-Ran. The intense pain made Hae-Ran feel sick to her stomach, and she had no choice but to run to the bathroom and throw up her food. What he did not expect, however, was that this would lead to another crisis. That night, because he had to go out again, Tae-Soo drew some sedative into a syringe and told Hae-Ran that while he was gone, if So-Jin tried to resist again, she should inject it directly into her body, and if So-Jin unfortunately went into shock, then she should inject the other bottle to wake her back up. As soon as he finished giving his instructions, Tae-Soo went out to take care of his business. Seeing that they had another brief chance to breathe, and noticing that Hae-Ran seemed close to breaking down, So-Jin decisively began appealing to her emotions and once again proposed that the two of them escape together, because she had personally experienced how terrifying Tae-Soo was. And to avoid her younger brother dying before he could receive treatment while she herself ended up becoming Tae-Soo's discarded pawn, Hae-Ran could not help agreeing to So-Jin's plan, but to test whether she was being sincere and to be safe, Hae-Ran insisted on confirming first whether So-Jin's account really had 80 million won in it. Seeing how cautious Hae-Ran was, So-Jin had no choice but to call the bank and check. At that very moment, she felt extremely guilty, clearly because there was nowhere near that much money in the account.
조회하신 박소진님의 출금 가능액은 72만 5천.
The moment the sedative instantly caused Hae-Ran to collapse, So-Jin immediately hooked the key with her toes, freed the other hand cuffed to the bed frame, and ran downstairs into the living room without caring whether Hae-Ran lived or died. However, So-Jin still could not escape, because the doors and windows had already been locked by Tae-Soo. Only then did So-Jin realize that Hae-Ran had not lied. But even after confirming that she was trapped in the middle of a remote wilderness, she still had no intention of giving up just like that. Just as she was about to smash the doors and windows with a flower pot, a laptop on the floor suddenly caught her attention. Seeing that the laptop was the same as her ex-husband's, So-Jin could not help forming a suspicion. Could the person behind her kidnapping really be her ex-husband? Driven by that strong suspicion, So-Jin cautiously typed in her ex-husband's birthday. When the computer successfully opened to the desktop, So-Jin's suspicion was confirmed. But just as she was struggling to believe it, the awakened Hae-Ran also came in front of her. To keep the two of them from being dealt with by Tae-Soo, Hae-Ran begged So-Jin to return to the room, because Tae-Soo would be back very soon. Seeing how naive and trusting Hae-Ran still was, So-Jin had no choice but to make Tae-Soo's identity clear.
그 새끼 정태수잖아.
뭐라고?
그 새끼 감옥에 있는 거 아니었어? 언제 나온 건데? 너 다 알고 있으니까 최 시장에도 무조건 거짓말한 거 아니야.
아들도 아픈 거 아니야?
무슨 아들? 그 새끼가 아들이 있대?
After learning that she had been kept completely in the dark by Tae-Soo, So-Jin insisted that Tae-Soo would never spare Hae-Ran, because the scars from domestic abuse on her body were already enough to prove how twisted he really was. Once Hae-Ran recognized the reality of the situation, she immediately changed her mind and decided to escape this place together with So-Jin. To make that plan happen, Hae-Ran suggested using sleeping pills to drug Tae-Soo. The moment she finished speaking, the pager made a sound. Realizing that Tae-Soo was about to return, the two women had no time to think and could only act immediately. Hae-Ran tied So-Jin back onto the bed and restored the scene to exactly how it had looked before Tae-Soo left, while also hiding a pair of scissors under the pillow. But even though they finished everything quickly, Tae-Soo, who was suspicious by nature, went to check on So-Jin's condition the moment he came back. When he saw that So-Jin was drenched in sweat, Tae-Soo asked what had happened. Using the injected medicine as an excuse, Hae-Ran barely managed to brush aside Tae-Soo's questioning. Then she immediately changed the subject and asked Tae-Soo whether he wanted to eat instant noodles together. The moment she heard him agree, Hae-Ran knew their chance to escape had come. While Tae-Soo was washing his face in the bathroom, Hae-Ran immediately seized the opportunity and secretly mixed the sleeping pills into his noodles. But just when she thought the plan would go perfectly, Tae-Soo's expression changed the moment he came back out. Seeing that he not only did not take a single bite of the noodles, but also crushed his cigarette into the cup, Hae-Ran instantly felt a terrible sense of dread. Had Tae-Soo figured out that they were trying to escape? As expected, Hae-Ran's suspicion was right. While urinating in the bathroom just now, Tae-Soo had found a bullet in the toilet. Thinking back to Hae-Ran's strange behavior earlier, Tae-Soo naturally began to suspect that the two sisters seemed to be planning an escape. To further confirm this suspicion, Tae-Soo went alone into So-Jin's room. After discovering a bullet mark on one of the walls, Tae-Soo realized that his identity had already been exposed. So he immediately dropped his disguise and chose to confront his ex-wife So-Jin face to face. Knowing that Tae-Soo had already figured out their escape plan, So-Jin's hands began to tremble uncontrollably. Without hesitation, Tae-Soo revealed the reason. Back when they were still married, he had unfortunately fallen into massive debt, and at that time So-Jin did not ask her father for help, which led to Tae-Soo serving several years in prison. So now that he had been released, Tae-Soo came up with this method to take revenge. Realizing that Tae-Soo had been planning this for a long time, So-Jin immediately felt that something was wrong, and quickly apologized, admitting that it had been her fault back then. But Tae-Soo, completely consumed by anger, could not listen to a single word, and without hesitation injected a lethal sedative directly into So-Jin's body. The drug caused So-Jin to collapse instantly. But just as Hae-Ran finally found a chance to fight back and prepared to confront Tae-Soo, he had already come down from the second floor. Facing Hae-Ran's questioning, Tae-Soo lied and said that So-Jin was fine, then ordered Hae-Ran to quickly change clothes and go out with him to collect the ransom. Under Tae-Soo's absolute authority, Hae-Ran had no way to refuse. However, what she did not expect was that Tae-Soo did not take her to meet So-Jin's father, but instead drove her to a remote forest. When Hae-Ran followed his instructions and lifted the cover, Tae-Soo kicked her straight into a pit. Only then did Hae-Ran realize how serious the situation was. To save her own life, she immediately lowered herself and begged Tae-Soo to spare her. But Tae-Soo, already blinded by rage, had no intention of agreeing. Not only did he plan to get rid of Hae-Ran, he also intended to frame it as if Hae-Ran had killed So-Jin. Fortunately, things did not go entirely his way. Taking advantage of the moment when Tae-Soo was not fully alert, Hae-Ran quickly drove the truck back to the house. After entering, she grabbed the antidote at once and rushed upstairs to inject it into So-Jin. Although she managed to save her in time, before they could even feel relieved, the recovered Tae-Soo had already returned. With no other choice, the two women had to hide. At that moment, their hearts were pounding in their throats, and they did not even dare to breathe. While Tae-Soo was briefly distracted, So-Jin seized the chance, and with Hae-Ran's signal at the door, she rushed out to meet her. The two of them worked together to block the glass door with a mop, but Tae-Soo quickly broke through.
둘이 많이 친해졌네?
Even with the advantage in numbers, the two women were no match for him. Fortunately, just as Tae-Soo was about to finish off So-Jin, Hae-Ran pulled out the electrical wires inside the house. Taking advantage of Tae-Soo's moment of confusion, So-Jin immediately got up and attacked him, then escaped the scene with Hae-Ran. Realizing that they were no match for Tae-Soo at all, the two could only hide in a room. Just as So-Jin did not know what to do next, Hae-Ran looked at the window and came up with an idea. She remembered that the window in the room where So-Jin had been held was not locked, but only blocked. Without wasting a second, the two rushed into the room, tore off the soundproof padding from the walls, removed the wooden barrier with a stick, and then So-Jin smashed the glass with a chair. Just when they thought they could finally escape, before So-Jin could even climb out of the window, Tae-Soo kicked her back inside from outside. Clearly, everything was still under his control. Seeing that Hae-Ran had been stabbed in the abdomen with a wooden stick and could no longer stand to continue resisting, So-Jin knew that they stood even less of a chance now. But even so, she still refused to give in. To make So-Jin fully realize her mistake, Tae-soo began striking her again and again, and then tried to strangle her to death. At the critical moment, So-Jin suddenly remembered the scissors hidden under the pillow. After a desperate struggle, the two finally managed to stop the out-of-control Tae-soo, but their hearts were now filled with fear and complexity. Soon, Hae-Ran made a decision, considering her own humble background, and not wanting So-Jin to be dragged down by the situation. She said she would take all the blame and told So-Jin to leave immediately, but So-Jin, who had only cared about herself before, did not walk away this time, and instead reached out her hand to help Hae-Ran, even though they had been separated since childhood and barely had any bond. After going through such a life and death ordeal, they had already become the most important people to each other, and perhaps fate finally chose to favor them. So-Jin found Tae-soo's car, and inside the trunk, she discovered a full 1 billion won in cash. Clearly, the father they did not trust had never given up on rescuing his daughter. As the radio played warm blessings, the two sisters, finally at peace, looked at each other, even without saying a single word. It was clear that they were about to begin a new life together. And with that, the film comes to an end. I am a creator who loves explaining Korean films, and I hope all of you will support me in the next video.